Welcome, everyone, to the Catalanotto Cast. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's been a minute, so thank you for joining us on what will regularly be a weekly podcast for focusing on the Toronto Blue Jays here on the Couch Potato Diary Sports Podcast Network. It's funny. I just did about 6 minutes and realized I forgot to hit record. So off to a great start. I'm going to blame the rain outside for all of that. But obviously the Jays have a big series coming up here against the Baltimore Orioles that will have probably gotten going by the time you are listening or watching to this. But I think the big story of the weekend, coming off of a couple of series wins for the Blue Jays, is Vlad Guerrero Jr. at third base. This is, I think, a really, really interesting experiment. And for one game yesterday, looked fine. Didn't look overly comfortable, but he makes a couple of plays, making that play where he was essentially playing at shortstop, which I don't think we need to get any ideas, but it's something. He makes that play. He makes another play at third base. He didn't look like it wasn't Matt Chapman. It wasn't this smooth, flowing defender making these plays, but he was effective enough that it didn't cost the Blue Jays in what ends up being a one-run game against the Pirates. And so, mission accomplished. And I think it's obviously an intriguing situation for a number of different reasons. I think the most immediate reason for this is Spencer Horwitz is hitting the bejesus out of the baseball in AAA right now, and don't know if you've noticed, when they aren't playing the White Sox or the Pirates, this team has struggled to score runs. And so anytime you can get quality hitters into your lineup, you have to do that. And sometimes that means shifting things around in ways that you're not overly comfortable with. And I can't imagine they just threw Vladdy at third base. Like, just, you see the lineup and there's a 5 by Vlad instead of a 3. And oh, well, guess I'm playing third. They probably have been working this for a bit to the point where they are comfortable putting Vlad Guerrero Jr. in this spot. And so I think now it opens up some ways to get some offense going a little bit. When you look at Vladdy at third, either Turner at first or Turner DHing, but it opens up first base or it opens up the DH spot, which gives you, again, a bit more variety. And I don't know if Vladdy is going to be able to play like 25 games at third base or anything like that, but it just gives you a little bit more flexibility. And this was an organization that really focused on flexibility and guys who have a bit of variety to their play style. That's why Kevin Biggio. That's why Lourdes Gurriel Jr. That's why, to a certain degree, Davis Schneider. I'm sure there's others that I'm forgetting, but there is a real focus on being that sort of a team and being able to have a bunch of different lineups that you can put out there. And if they want to do like an NBA 2K preset lineup for offense, then this is a fun way to be able to do that, to get as many offensive players in your lineup as possible. And so I think whether it is doing this so that Vladdy can play third on occasion, so that Horwitz can get into the lineup a little bit more as either a first baseman or a DH, or you can bring in a Elvis as a DH every now and then, or you can just spell Springer from the outfield, bring him in as a DH. This is an organization for a long time, even predating the Atkins Shapiro group. They have liked having that DH spot kind of be open so that you could weave a Edwin, Tulowitzki, Bautista, Overbay, Gloss even through that spot. That they have liked having that. And this gives them at least the possibility maybe once a week to be able to have that spot be open and be able to maneuver things that way. The one pause I have on this is when Vladdy was last playing third, it didn't go great, and that carried with him to the plate. And that is the thing that I caution, is because I have said from the beginning of the season, this team only goes as far as Vladdy can carry them. And if he is frustrated after a rough play at third base, and that sends him into a slight slump, even for just a couple of games, then all of a sudden you have Davis Schneider as a quality hitter, and that's about it. I'm getting to the point where you can maybe trust Varcho, but still, like, you're not feeling overly confident if that guy isn't hitting at the top or in the middle of your lineup. And so I worry about upsetting the apple cart in that way. But again, I think there must have been discussions with Vladdy about how comfortable he is playing there and how to separate offense and defense when the situation arises. But this does open things up for the Blue Jays when it comes to the trade market. And again, I don't think you can just go out and get JD Martinez. All right, you're our everyday DH. And Turner and Vladdy, you guys are going to split time first and third. But if you do get someone who is a little bit more on just the purely offensive side, then you now have an opening. Whether it is at first, whether it is at DH, or however you want to work it around. If it's in right field with Springer getting a day off, it does kind of give you a little bit of flexibility to maybe broaden your horizons for, if nothing else, another bench bat or the utilization of Daniel Vogelbach. If you want the right-handed version of him on your bench and you just need to figure out a way to get that in, then now you have a way to potentially do that. And I think it also shows this team understanding the need for offense. That part's been very clear. But I do think that we have seen, whether it be Turner at third base or now Vladdy at third base, this is a team that recognizes that we definitely went too far on we need strong defensive players because we got this offense that's hitting everything, but Bo Bichette is crashing into George Springer in center field and baseballs are falling and we're losing playoff games 8-1. So let's go out and get Varsho and Kiermaier and Chapman and lock in defensively. Yes, I know Chapman predated those guys, but you get my point. They made a real focus on defense because we've got this offense. Well, now they don't got the offense. And so I wonder if it opens up for, as I've talked about before, a Luis Robert out in center field. And maybe Kiermaier is now a fourth outfielder and you do something along those lines. Or like Varsho kind of just shifts all around the outfield or whatever it is. But this is a very clear, I think, message from this organization that they are aware of what's happening. Probably more specifically, they're aware of what's not happening. And they are trying a whole lot of different things to try to fix it. So we will see. I'm not, by the way, that is not an endorsement of this group. I am still definitely leaning significantly more toward fire everybody than anything else, but we'll see how that all goes here coming up. And overall, it's back-to-back series wins for this Blue Jays team. Yes, it's against the White Sox, and yes, it's against the Pirates, but they just lost a series to the Detroit Tigers. So take the victories where you can get them, because you are now entering such an important part of your series as it thunders outside. I don't know if the microphone picked that up. I didn't realize we were in for that sort of a night out here in Calgary. But this is such a important time now for the Jays to be able to at least get some kind of momentum going. It does give you at least the glimmer of hope. And I still have hope for this Blue Jays team. But that hope could be dashed in the next little bit. Let's go over the schedule here in the next little while. It begins tonight with Baltimore. They have 4 against Baltimore. Then it is Oakland, so you best be sweeping. And then it is Milwaukee, Cleveland, Boston, Yankees for 4, Astros, Mariners, Giants, Diamondbacks, All-Star break. This stretch between now and the All-Star break is a make or break stretch for the Blue Jays. I don't want to hear about quality of competition. There are a lot of good teams in baseball, we're finding out this year. No one, absolutely no one, has a easy path to the postseason, right? Like, I don't know where people think this mystical schedule exists, where you just play, like, I guess technically the Central, but where you just play the Tigers and the White Sox and the Pirates and the Rockies. I don't know where that exists, where you just get to play them for 2 months. And then, you sprinkle in some Yankees, whatever. It wasn't supposed to matter with this team. This team was supposed to be good enough. Maybe not this year, but in the past, this team was supposed to be good enough, and expectations were that this team would be good enough that they could be matchup-proof. I don't care if the Yankees get Babe Ruth back. This was supposed to be a team that could compete with anybody. So I don't want to hear that, my schedule is hard. You knew the schedule was going to be hard. You're in the East. You happen to be in the American League portion of it. So yeah, it's going to be hard. Same hard for Baltimore. Same hard for the Yankees. They seem to be doing just fine. This is now your time to prove that you are a real legitimate baseball team and are really a team that is worthy of making a push and making some adjustments to. But I think it has to start tonight with this series with the Orioles. I think you have to split. At the very least, you have to split with the Orioles. 3 out of 4, obviously great, and a sweep would be optimal, but not overly realistic. A series loss, and I'm not going to say, oh, it's over, but a series loss, again, puts you in such a deep hole. Let me kind of explain what I mean. I know Ben Nicholson Smith and Arden Zwelling have talked about like what the winning percentage would be just to get this team to 85 wins in the upcoming season. The Blue Jays in their last 10 games went 6-4. Yeah. But the Blue Jays in the last 10 games went 6-4, which is fine. You feel very comfortable about that. That means they lost 2 games of ground in their last 10 to the Yankees and Orioles, who went 8 of 10. You lost 1 game in the wild card for the 3rd wild card spot to the Minnesota Twins, who went 7-3 in that time. You gained 2 games on Tampa Bay, who was just ahead of you. You gained 1 game on Texas ahead of that. You split with I think it was Detroit who's just ahead of them. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it is going to take a lot to get this team to where they wanted to be and where expectations were at the beginning of the season, where they're in a position to be winning playoff games. That is still the goal. Just making it into the playoffs, just because you were bad for the first couple months of the year, doesn't mean that the end goal should change. This is still a team that should be competing to win playoff games. And you can't get there, obviously, if you don't make the playoffs. And they have put themselves in such a hole that you have to play not just days of competitive baseball, honestly, not even weeks of competitive baseball. This now has to, like, this stretch here has to be so clearly the worst stretch they've played all year. And now go on what is a really, really strong run the rest of the way just to have a hope. That is how difficult it is. When you go 6-4 in 10 games, which is a fine mark, you feel okay with it, and you lose ground on all of the teams you are chasing, that just highlights how difficult this push to the postseason really is going to be. I've kind of addressed this on Couch Potato Diary, but I just want to talk about it here. As we approach this stretch, if this period doesn't go well, there are going to be calls to trade Vlad and to trade Bo. I would not do that this season for a couple of different reasons. One, I think you do that in the offseason when there are more teams involved. Because Bo and Vlad are the types where if you can guarantee that there is an extension, I think that opens the door to a number of different teams that could potentially be involved. But Colorado isn't getting involved during the regular season or anything like that, right? So it opens up the door for that. But to me, more specifically, Ross Atkins should not get the opportunity to trade Vlad Guerrero Jr. or to trade Bo Bichette. And I think firing him at the trade deadline at the All-Star break doesn't make a lick of sense either. To me, Ross Atkins is either tasked with building a strong enough team around Bo and Vlad that this stops being a question, or you don't get the opportunity to trade them because you have been fired. That is what it comes down to for me. He has had so many opportunities to make this team better, and objectively has made them worse each of the last couple of seasons, to the point where they are at now, where they are a light-hitting, slapping it around baseball team that is celebrating series wins over the Pittsburgh Pirates. That is what this has turned into. And yes, they tried on Shohei. Yes, they were in on Soto. All of those things. They've been in on a bunch of guys, and they've made some good moves too, but they've made some really, really bad ones. And I just don't think that Atkins gets the opportunity to do it. You either make the playoffs and you're not trading him anyway, or you fired because they missed the playoffs. It is those two options for me with Ross Atkins. All right, that is going to do it for the Catalanotto Cast today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Follow me. I know it says at social media. On social media, at Primetime Klein. Make sure you are, if you're watching, make sure you're liking the video and subscribing. If you are listening, make sure that you subscribe and leave a review, and I will talk to all of you next week. Have a great day, everybody.